Hello, ambassadors. Welcome. How's everybody doing tonight? Excellent. It's great to see you all again. And I say again because about a year ago, we started the ambassador program, and I was very fortunate because I was one of the very first speakers. And for many of you, I hope you remember that we talked about emergency management. And you got to learn as ambassadors how the city responds to significant events and emergencies and how you can assist. Well, tonight, we're actually going to dive a little bit deeper, so you will have an even more significant role in helping the city in regards to emergency management. And if you would like to relive that whole program all over again, you can by going to coconutcreek.net/ambassador. So again, everybody, welcome. So on the agenda tonight, we are going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about Coconut Creek Fire Rescue. We're going to talk a little bit about emergency management. And then we're going to talk about Community Emergency Response Teams, or CERT for short. All three of these items on the agenda go together. They go hand in hand because Coconut Creek Fire Rescue is a major component of the city's emergency management plan. And the CERT team is a responsibility of the fire department. So let's talk a little bit about fire rescue services in Coconut Creek. And I have to warn you, I may be biased, but I could talk about fire rescue services for hours and hours and hours because I'm that passionate about it. And there's a lot of services that we provide. However, I won't do that to you tonight. I won't do that to you. We're just going to cover very briefly about the services here in Coconut Creek. And at the end of the presentation, when we have all presented, we're going to give you ample time to ask any questions that you would like. So I would just ask that if you have a question, just remember it, and you can ask it at the end. So almost 2 years ago, on September 26, 2021, Coconut Creek Fire Rescue was established. And we began with a vision. And that vision is to provide premier service and exceptional care. In addition to our vision, we also have 6 core values. And our core values are basically our beliefs, how we provide that service, what we want to achieve, what we want to be as we're providing that emergency service. Basically, it's our culture that we're trying to instill. So we promote accountability, integrity, innovation, passion, unity, and professionalism. So let's look a little bit at the numbers. So your fire department is comprised of approximately 78 members. That's from the fire chief all the way down to the rookie firefighter. In addition, within that 78, we also have our Community Risk Reduction Division as well as civilian employees. From that 78, 65 of those members make up our operations division. So when you think of operations, those are the men and women who are occupying our fire stations today. They're responding to the 911 calls. There's about 65 of them. They work a 24-hour shift. They report to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. They won't go home until 8 o'clock the following morning. So the shift that is on duty right now will not go home until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So they are responding to all of the emergencies within that 24-hour period. So after their shift is done, they are off for 48 hours. So it's a 24, 48-hour schedule. So basically, you can look at a schedule and know that you're going to be working every third day. 24 on, 48 off, 24 on, 48 off. That is a common schedule in the fire service across the country. It's worked out very well. I can tell you what shift is going to be working on the 4th of July in 2029 just by looking at a shift count. But when you look at that schedule, 1 shift on, 2 days off, it comprises 3 shifts, A, B, and C shift. So A shift works. When A shift is done, B shift comes in for 24. When B shift is done, C shift, and then it starts all over, A, B, and C. And what you will find is no staffing less than 16 firefighters on per shift. So at any given time, on our operations side, we have at least 16 firefighters on duty to serve and answer the call. So let's talk a little bit about the fire stations, our personnel, and some of our equipment. So if you look at this map, you'll see the beautiful city of Coconut Creek. And it's about 12 square miles, home to about 60,000 residents. But one thing that you notice is that it's more long than it is wide. And for a fire rescue service, that could actually produce some significant challenges. However, thankfully, Coconut Creek has 3 stations that are strategically placed to provide optimal coverage in the north, in the middle, and in the south of the city. So we'll go ahead and start at the north end. At the very top, we have Fire Station 94, which is off of Soul Press Boulevard. In the middle, roughly the middle, it's pretty close, isn't it? It's Fire Station 113, which is off Wiles Road. In the south end of the city, we have Fire Station 50, which is off of Coconut Creek Parkway. At each of those stations, you will find 5 personnel. They are all trained as firefighters and paramedics. At the minimal level, they are all firefighter and paramedics. We are a paramilitary organization. We have a rank structure. We call it the chain of command. Somebody is answering to somebody. So for each of those shifts that I've mentioned, A, B, and C shift, there's one battalion chief that's responsible for all of it on that shift. Can everybody hear me? We good? Okay, good. They're responsible for the entire shift. At the station, we also have rank structure. We have a captain at the station. That captain is responsible for everything that occurs at that station, and they ride on the apparatus. Then we have a lieutenant that is responsible primarily for the emergency medical response. We also have a driver engineer that, quite frankly, is the best job in the fire department because they get to drive the big red trucks. Who wouldn't want to do that? But seriously, they transport our firefighters to and from emergency scenes, and they do a great job at it. The rest of the makeup of the station is at least firefighter paramedics. So that's 5 personnel. Also, at each of our stations, we have what we call a rescue truck. All 3 stations have a rescue truck. You may have heard it referred to as an ambulance. The fire service doesn't like to call it an ambulance. We call it a rescue truck. But just remember that it basically is an ambulance. Don't ever say that I said that. In addition to that, we have 2 types of apparatus. We have a fire truck and we have a quint. Everybody knows what a fire truck looks like, right? Okay. Well, a quint is basically a fire truck on steroids. It's a fire truck that is long and it has a ladder on the top of it that can reach heights up to 75, 85 feet. And what that does for us is it allows us to do high angle types of rescues to get and track victims down from high spaces, but it also enables us to provide an elevated water stream and those types of water related actions. So with all of our personnel and all of this equipment, we're capable to perform advanced life support procedures, or ALS. So what does that mean to you? That means when we respond to your emergency, we can perform basically everything that an emergency room can do. We are an emergency room on wheels. We carry over 30 life safety medications and IV solutions. We have advanced airway adjuncts. We also have diagnostic EKG and defibrillation equipment, much like you would find in a cardiologist's office. And we can do this in the field. One of the greatest, most asked questions that I got throughout my 37 plus years, and I just dated myself, in fire rescue and emergency services is, why does the fire truck always follow the ambulance? I'm going to tell you a secret. And it's not because the ambulance is faster, but you probably are getting the understanding of why. It's because that we work as a team out of a fire station. We're not a separate, fire department only responds to this, the emergency medical service only responds to that. No, we are a team. We all work together, we live together in the same firehouse, we respond together. So what it does for us is it puts more boots on the ground. It puts more hands on patients to have better patient care. And it enables us to transport patients in a much more quick manner to get them to that appropriate facility that they need to get to. We provide a myriad of different services. I'm just going to touch here on some of the more basic ones that you're probably more aware of. But primarily, we provide emergency response. That is the emergency medical service, fire suppression, so that's your sick person, chest pain, cardiac calls, structure fires, vehicle fires, and so forth. But we also provide fire investigations, inspections, and public education through our Community Risk Reduction Division. And we also have a very robust community outreach program. And a lot of that is done through our public education as well. And lastly, you'll see on there is emergency management. So can anybody tell me how many responses you think that Coconut Creek Fire Rescue had in 2022? Anybody want to take a guess?
800.
800? Anybody else?
1,200.
1,200? Would you believe that we actually respond to over 8,214 emergency calls? Roughly 23 calls in a 24-hour period, so maybe one call every hour. That's normal. It's busy, it's manageable, but that's normal. That's what we do. Now, when you take that, consider an approaching hurricane, or some type of tornado, or weather system, or pandemic. When you couple that in with our normal operations, you can see that resources can be taxed very quickly. Any city, any public emergency response will be the same. Resources can be taxed very, very quickly, which is why emergency management is critical to the mitigations of all of those emergencies. And here to talk a little bit more about emergency management is our Fire Chief, Jeff Gary.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see a lot of people came out, even though there is an impending cloud out there. That seems like my biggest job around here. I get to watch the weather and tell everybody the weather coming out. Yeah. All right, so as Chief Blizzard said, I'm just going to do a quick recap on what we talked about during the first ambassador meeting almost a year ago, which you can look at online. What is emergency management? Why is it important out there? You can see here, this is a forecast track of a hurricane, that while that is one of the most severe emergency threats that we face here at Coconut Creek, it's by far not the only one. We have dealt with a tornado before. We've dealt with rain incidents. We dealt with COVID first as an emergency management thing. We've dealt with missing people and other things such as that. So, here's the textbook definition of emergency management. Emergency management is the administration of personnel from multiple disciplines to address all types of hazards and disasters, both man-made and natural. Okay, that's a mouthful. That's the FEMA, federal government definition. What does that mean in Coconut Creek? That means all the departments here at Coconut Creek work together under one emergency manager, the city manager, and other outside agencies to handle all emergencies that come up. It's pretty simple. We do this through mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Mitigation, when we're talking about that, that's all the stuff that we do beforehand. We get a lot of grants for this stuff. Stormwater utilities. We get ready for a significant rain event. You all remember the one in April? We didn't have very much damage here, even though we didn't have as much rain in some areas of Broward County, because we have made sure that our infrastructure is resilient to any kind of emergency. We do that for everything that we can. The buildings we build, our EOC, make sure it's up to par and ready to go, things like that. Preparedness, that's when we do all of our training. We make sure everybody here is trained to the same level as FEMA, so that way what we talk about here, the way we do things here, is the way they do it every place else. So if we have to have other help from the state, county, federal government come in, we're all talking the same language. We do drills. As staff, we just completed our drill for it is hurricane season, so we just completed our drill, so we're ready to go. Good news is we're not going to have one this year, okay? That's going to come back to bite you, right? Yeah. Hunt me down if you do, all right? That's okay. But we're going with a positive attitude here. So we do everything we can. We stockpile extra resources. We make sure all of our personnel have everything in order that they need should we call them in for an emergency. things like that. That's what we call preparedness. When an incident actually occurs, we have the response. With that, not only public safety, police and fire respond, also our public works, our utilities, stormwater, our HR, they have a part in it, as well as finance. Finance has a huge part in it. City Attorney's Office with all the contracts and declaration of emergency, and even your city commissioners, we all work together, again, under the emergency manager for the response. Recovery, we also seek a lot of grants for recovery. After emergency happens, we want to do everything possible as the city through grants or our own funding to get the businesses back up and going, get your personal back up and going. So the way we do that is we use the incident command system. What that means is everybody knows what their job is, everyone knows their supervisor. Supervisors only supervise a maximum of 5 to 7 people. And that's through studies in an emergency situation. That's the most amount of people that you can really supervise, I guess is the easy way to put it. And everybody reports to one incident commander, the emergency manager, who in this case is the city manager. So that's how we handle everything. We work together with our partners here, City of Coconut Creek, our emergency manager. We work with our emergency management division. When they activate their EOC, we're in constant communication with them. Even during a non-threat event, we're constantly in communication with them. We also work with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, either through Broward County or directly with the state and even with FEMA. We work directly with the FEMA federal government or through the state and then through FEMA. So, how do we do this? Through training. Like I said, we make sure all of our personnel throughout the city are trained to the same level and are trained to the FEMA standards out there, which the state follows, the county, everyone else follows. Resources. We make sure our resources are ready to go, and we know what our surrounding agencies, what their resources are available should we need them here, or if they have an incident, we want to make sure that we all talk the same language. And again, I'll jump back to the rain incident. When they requested pumps, we wanted a Class A pump. Well, that means 500 gallons per minute, gasoline-powered pump. We want to make sure we have the same language and everything, so we have the same resources available. We do a lot of community outreach, such as this, and that's what we need your help with as ambassadors. So one of the things we do in Broward County, there are just over 30 shelters, evacuation shelters, ready to be opened at any time. Broward County's in charge of that. They open them up. There's actually 3 that are available to be opened in the city of Coconut Creek. So once the county opens those, declares them open, our police and fire will help with those, but we also support them. They also have a special needs shelter in Broward County. Now, this is for people with special needs such as home oxygen, bedridden, things like that, medical needs that should they be evacuated, they need a lot of help. In the back of the room, and we'll introduce Stevenson later, there's paperwork back there that you can fill out applications. You pre-register for this program, it's countywide. You fill out all the paperwork and you file it with them. So before emergency, we're talking hurricane now, they will find out what you need. They will actually, and if you need to be evacuated, they will pick you up, take you to the shelter, which is staffed by doctors, nurses, respiratory specialists, etc. And then when the emergency is over and you can go back, they'll transfer you back home. So if you or someone you know has special needs and may be evacuated, that's a good program. There's paperwork in the back that you can take, fill out, because it's several pages, so it may help to fill it out and turn it in that way. So that's there in the back. We also participate in a vulnerable population registry program. Under that, people who live alone, elderly, or may have some kind of special needs like that, they can register for this program. And again, that's in the back. You can pick that up as well if you or someone needs it. What we do is, before hurricane season, we go through everybody that's on the list. We update contact information of you and someone you know, a family member or something like that. In the case of a hurricane, right before the hurricane hits, we're going to contact you, find out approximately where you're going to be, any updates to your contact information, and immediately after the storm, we're going to contact you to check, make sure you're okay. Or if your family members contact us, we know where to start looking for you. So that's a very valuable program. Hopefully you take advantage of that also in the back. The final thing I want to talk about that we do here in Coconut Creek and countywide is rapid impact assessment. So this graphic here on that you see on the board, this is a water damage report. After a hurricane, we do a wind. We do one for wind and one for water. This one here is the actual one following the April rain event, where the airport was shut down for a couple of days, and I couldn't get my flight out, and I had to sit there, and anyway. So that's what this one is for. This is the actual one. You see Coconut Creek up at the top where the arrow is pointing? All little green squares. Each one of these squares is a quarter mile. That's how granular it gets, specific. All the green ones mean we're okay. We did okay. We didn't get any damage. Now, as you go down south, you see the colors change to the red ones. That's the airport and the area around the airport that suffered the major damage. So this gets done as quick as possible, rapidly after an emergency happened, sent to the county, sent to the state, sent to FEMA. That's how everybody knows to prepare to mobilize resources to send to that area. So that's something I wanted to show you. So now I'm going to turn it over to our fire marshal, Ryan Banyas. He's going to tell you about another program that hopefully we'll see some interest in now here. Right.
Thank you very much, Chief. So I want to highlight that not only do professionals participate in emergency management, but everyday citizens like you ambassadors do as well. You can participate in emergency management by joining a CERT team. We talked about CERT as a community emergency response team. Is there anybody here who is a CERT member or used to be a CERT member? Wonderful. Give those guys a round of applause. So in the next couple minutes, I want to talk about what is a CERT team, how to become a member of a CERT team, and what are the benefits of a CERT team. This picture up here is a picture of Coconut Creek's CERT team. So what is a CERT team? A CERT team is a group of volunteers who are trained and organized to respond to an emergency. All right, these volunteers are trained in basic emergency management, and they are trained to help their family, their neighbors, and first responders. Who can think of why it's important to have volunteers that are trained? Yes, ma'am.
Volunteers are needed to subsidize the department. There's limited personnel, so for like football game or butterfly festival, to have more bodies around to assist.
Absolutely. They can help in non-disaster events like the ones you mentioned, and disaster events like the ones that Chief mentioned. It's important to have trained volunteers, because during an emergency or a disaster, people are going to want to help, right? And whether they're trained or not, they're still going to want to help. So if we train individuals to be safe and respond in an organized and safe manner, that's why we want to train people. I want to talk a little bit about the history of CERT. In 1985, the fire chief for the Los Angeles Fire Department, he witnessed firsthand the earthquakes in Mexico, California, and even Japan. He noticed that there were thousands of people that needed help during these earthquakes, and there was hundreds of thousands of people that wanted to help the people that were injured. Unfortunately, there were hundreds of people volunteering to help that were injured and even died responding to these earthquakes. So we thought, how can, we make this better? And that's where the CERT concept came about, all right? Since then, it has evolved, and in 1993, CERT became part nationally of FEMA, and today there are over 2,700 CERT teams, and one of those CERT teams is our Coconut Creek CERT team. The CERT program nationwide has trained hundreds of thousands of CERT members, and we've trained hundreds of CERT members locally. So, locally we have 15 CERT teams in Broward County. The Fire Chiefs Association of Broward County has recognized the importance of CERT, and within their organization, they've created a subcommittee specifically for CERT. That committee is comprised of CERT coordinators, and they meet regularly and talk about training and recruitment within Broward County. Our CERT coordinator is Inspector John Louis. He's in the back, so say hello to him. Thank you. And so, again, the fire chiefs noticed the importance of CERT, and they've put together a video to highlight CERT and to help promote CERT in the county. And I'd like to share that video with you guys today.
Emergencies happen, often with little or no warning. Are the 1.9 million residents of Broward County prepared for such an event? Recent history has shown first responders can become quickly overwhelmed. During these major emergencies, responses may be delayed hours or up to several days. Who's there to help within those first few minutes? Who's trained to intervene in a crisis until professional help arrives? This is where your Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, comes in.
The Community Emergency Response Team CERT program educates volunteers on disaster preparedness for the hazards that may impact their area and trains them in basic disaster response skills. Volunteers will learn basic emergency management, fire suppression, medical operations, search and rescue operations, hazmat, terrorism, and structured leadership. Advanced classes are available after basic training.
CERT offers a consistent nationwide approach to volunteer training and organization that professional responders can rely on during disaster situations, allowing them to focus on more critical tasks. CERT teams are prepared to assist their communities through special event coverage, firefighters, law enforcement support, point of distribution sites, shelter management, and so much more.
As trained individuals responding to the needs of their city, members are community-oriented and answer when disasters strike that impact many areas of everyday life, including flooding, fires, tornadoes, and hurricanes, to name a few.
Do you know what to do in an emergency?
Are you ready to be part of something special?
Are you ready to assist your community during a crisis?
CERT members are an integral part of our community and offer great assistance during emergencies, large and small, essentially becoming a force multiplier.
Force multipliers are persons educated in doing some of the work of professionals, first responders, as you learned earlier in this segment. In essence, they are able to care for and act on large event incidents.
All right, I want to thank the Chiefs Association for recognizing the importance of CERT and putting together that video. So the Coconut Creek CERT team, we currently have 20 active CERT members, and we started in 2007. We've trained hundreds of citizens in CERT since then, and I'd like to just go over some basic basic activities that a CERT member would do. Some examples are our CERT team would provide first aid at city-sponsored events. They would also help with finding missing persons. A few years ago, the police department asked us to activate the CERT team at the north end of the county and to help look for a missing person. And actually, a CERT member was the one that found that missing person safe. The CERT team was recognized at the City Commission for that event. So we were really proud of them during that event. CERT teams are used to help in recruitment, volunteer recruitment for the CERT team. They also participate in rapid impact assessment and vulnerable population, which is what Chief Gary talked about earlier. I want to give a quick example of a CERT activation. So let's pretend like a hurricane, Category 1 hurricane is in the next couple days going to come and impact Broward County. What would we expect from a CERT member in that event? So the first thing we would expect is that CERT member self-prepare their home and their self and their family. They would make sure that their first aid kits are in order, that any emergency action plans, family plans that they have are in order, and they would determine if they were going to evacuate or not. Once they determine that, the CERT team would assist the fire department in contacting the individuals on the vulnerable population list. Currently, the last time I looked at the list, there's 80 residents throughout the city that are on the list that expect somebody to contact them before and after an event. So we use the CERT team to do that and assist in that. Once they do the vulnerable population and the hurricane impacts us, the CERT member would then participate in the rapid impact assessment that we talked about. We have CERT members throughout this city, so they provide the first eyes and ears of the first responders. They're the ones that are able to get that first snapshot of the damage. If we have more damage in the north end, then we can provide resources up in the north end versus the south end. So that initial rapid impact assessment is really important for emergency management to be able to determine what resources we need to use. The fourth thing that the CERT member would do is provide any immediate first aid to their neighbors if they needed that. So who qualifies to be a CERT member? Anybody that has the desire and passion for the skills and knowledge needed to help prepare for and respond to a disaster. That is the person who qualifies to be a CERT member. A lot of you ambassadors, just by being here and volunteering for this, have those qualities already. In addition to that, you have to attend a CERT academy. You have to be 18 years old or older to be part of Coconut Creek CERT. You have to pass a background check with the city, and you have to also adhere to the Coconut Creek CERT Code of Conduct. So what is this academy that I'm talking about? The CERT Academy is a 20-hour, 5-week academy, and it covers a variety of topics, which are listed here. So those topics are disaster preparedness. During the disaster preparedness section, you talk about a vulnerability assessment. So that's going over what type of events do we expect in South Florida versus different events in California, right? So once you do your vulnerability assessment, you talk about being prepared for yourself, disaster preparedness for your home, right? That's the most important thing is if you're not ready, then you can't help anybody else. So you talk about disaster preparedness with yourself. Next, we talk about CERT organization. We talk that Inspector Jean-Louis is our CERT coordinator. Underneath the CERT coordinator is a CERT team leader, and then we have CERT zone leaders under that. Coconut Creek has 12 zones that we've divided the city up to, and it's strategically placed. You go over medical operations. This is where you learn how to do patient assessments. You learn how to do basic wound care, burns, heat, fractures, bleed control. You also learn how to triage multiple patients at once, determine who needs the care and who might not need care. During disaster psychology, you'll go over how to prepare and cope with traumatic physical and emotional trauma that you might experience during a disaster. All right. You also learn self-coping techniques on how to help manage yourself and take care of yourself. You talk about fire safety and utility control. This is where we learn fire extinguishers. You saw in the video. You set up a fire extinguisher prop, and we put out the fire extinguisher, the flame. We also learn about hazardous materials. In the hazardous materials, you learn how to identify different types of hazardous materials and what to do if you come across that. You learn how to shut off utilities, electrical utilities, propane, gas utilities. You also learn light search and rescue techniques. In this, you'll learn how to do proper carries, how to carry people from long distances, proper damage assessments, and how to, size up a scenario to see if it's dangerous or not, if you should go in there. And then lastly, you talk about terrorism and kind of understand the signs of terrorism and what you should do. Once you've gone over all of these topics, you will have a mini drill where all of you and your students and your class get together and do a mock disaster scenario. In addition to that, once you become a CERT member, our CERT team, we meet quarterly to do additional training. We'll do more advanced first aid training. We will do CPR and AED training. We learn bleed control techniques, radio operations, crowd management, etc. So what equipment does Coconut Creek provide? We have a CERT backpack in the back with all of the equipment that we provide as Coconut Creek. We have some CERT members here. Does anybody know what the official color of CERT is? Green. They've adopted it officially. So you might have seen the Coconut Creek CERT truck going up and down Lyons Road. It's pretty hard to miss. It's a very bright green, yellow truck. And this was an old rescue truck that we purposed into our CERT command vehicle. In that CERT command vehicle, we have radios, first aid kits, we have computer, generators, everything we would need for a mobile CERT command unit. And then obviously the backpack also contains a variety of protective equipment. So I have some questions for you. What are the benefits of a CERT team? Who can answer that for me? There's a few benefits, but does anyone have one that comes to mind?
Speed.
What's that again?
Speed.
Speed. So yes, the CERT team is the first people to respond. They are quick to react, where the fire department might be delayed a little bit from road closures or flooding. A CERT team is very speedy. Great. Yes, ma'am.
Practical life-saving training, which you can use not just in a CERT event. I personally have given CPR twice, once to a person choking in a restaurant, once to a baby with an apple in their throat at Walmart. And they were blue. And boy, what a good feeling. So you can use it within your community, even when you're not at these important events.
You hit it perfectly. So if you're trained with yourself and you're able to understand what needs to be done during a disaster, they talked about the full force multiplier. You're then able to not become part of the problem, but help the problem. All right. Is there any other examples that anyone might have? Yes, ma'am.
Support.
Support.
For professionals.
Yes, of course. You as the CERT member, are helping us out. If you're able to do something, first aid on your neighbor where they might not need 911 during a disaster, then you're helping out the professionals who can go and do something else. Yes, ma'am.
We go out during a post-disaster, like a hurricane, and we do look. Each team does their own local assessment and reports back damage or no damage.
Yes, ma'am. You're talking about our rally points that we gave, those zones, rally points where if communications was totally knocked out, the CERT team would meet at those rally points and do that damage assessment and decide what actions they would take next. So building personal preparedness, that's what we talked about over here. Strengthening community resilience, that's what we talked about over here. Enhancing our emergency response capabilities, and engaging in community service. That's what you ambassadors are all about, right? Engaging in community service. So here's an example of some CERT activations that we've done recently at the Coconut Creek Butterfly Festival. The CERT team provides basic first aid. They assist with finding missing children. They also help with crowd control with the big concert that we get. And you can read it here. I'm not going to go through them all. We've even responded to a tornado at South Creek that went through South Creek and into Winmore. The CERT team helped and responded to that event. Here's pictures of our CERT members in action at various events. I see some people here already. So, ambassadors, what is next? What do we need from you? So, after COVID, our CERT team had a decrease in membership. We had a decrease in events that we attended, and we need your assistance in boosting the membership. All right? We have an upcoming CERT Academy. We don't have a date yet, but we want to put on a new CERT Academy. I think being a member and being a part of a CERT team is a unique opportunity to help out your community. That being said, is there anybody here that might be interested or might know somebody that is interested in CERT? Great, awesome, wonderful. So we have Inspector John Louis in the back. He has information on how to join the CERT team, how to submit an interest card. If you see up here on the screen, there is a link, QR code. That QR code is also in the back. If you scan that, it brings you to our interest card section on the internet. So please, again, it's at coconutcreek.net/CERT. We just need you to help us with CERT recruitment. You guys are out in the community, you're our ambassadors, and we would really appreciate that from you guys. So I thank you for your time. I appreciate all you do. I would also like you to please connect us with Coconut Creek Heads Up. That's where you can find some news on Coconut Creek. And obviously we have all of the social media platforms available. And lastly, is there any questions you have of us, me, the chiefs, anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I just, because most of us here are board members and of HOAs or condo associations, we have, for my association, we have everyone's email addresses. I started it years ago, so we communicate that way. We send out blasts, what's going on in Coconut Creek, etc. You also, some of you have bulletin boards, and you can work in coordination with someone from the CERT team and come up with a flyer that can be emailed or posted saying, interested in being a CERT, and just give like a little push, like, how this can help you with your family and your kids and your neighbors. And because, like, again, I'm older than I was when I, started being a CERT, but there's so many young people living in Coconut Creek and a lot of parents that would be interested in, and just young people. And you could kind of get them going and do that outreach, and you'd be surprised.
So you bring up a good point about young people. Some of this stuff we talked about might be a little bit intimidating. You might think that's not something that I can do, but our CERT team, we'd like to say there is a job for everybody. There's a job that no matter who you are, that you can do and to help with the CERT team. So please keep that in mind. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
The third information you gave about the numbers that are employed by the fire department. It's almost 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that 65 firefighters is enough for the size of this city? Plus, I know you guys have a contract with Hillsborough, okay, Hillsborough Pines, your neighborhood. So is that enough firefighters in the department today? You got at least what?
Right now.
Okay, you got 5 of your commissioners here today. You got the budgets coming up, and because I didn't understand. You got 5 firefighters in the house. Okay.
Yes, at each station, plus a battalion chief.
All right, so you got 3 on the fire truck and you got 2 on the EMS.
Right.
Correct? Is that enough?
Right now, it's actually a total of 78 personnel we have in the fire department. 65 is the number we have in the actual operations, the rest are admin, civilian staff. We are budgeted for 2 more positions. Those we've lost through attrition. We're in the process of filling those. And once we have those 2, we'll be fully staffed at that time. As of right now, we're running right at what we're budgeted for.
Well, forget about the budget. I mean,
You can't forget about the budget.
I mean, you know, the city has money. I mean, it's emergency. You want more people. I mean,
Right now, we are good with what we have. Our ultimate goal down the road, we're going to get through grants, et cetera. We want to seek to add an additional person on the rescue. But that's once we get settled in. Right now, we got to get more data to analyze actually to see how many calls we are running, you know, over a year period, 2-year period, to actually see if there is an additional need. But we do anticipate applying for grants for an additional person when we're eligible to. We have another 2 years before we're eligible to apply for federal grants. All right?
8,000 emergencies. I mean, you got to figure it out.
They're busy. Yes, sir.
Do you have a youth program?
Yes, cadet program, we are in the process of starting up. We anticipate rolling that out when school starts. There's Explorers and there's cadet programs. They're basically the same, similar to what the police have with their Explorer program. In August, we're rolling that program out. Yep, we just got that up and going. Absolutely. You gonna join it?
My granddaughter.
You'll have a great, oh.
My granddaughter was in charge of the youth program in Nassau County.
Okay.
900 volunteers.
Wow.
It was got her into Amherst College, and they interviewed her. The only thing that hit her the list is they fire department, and she went to Amherst, and she's getting a doctorate tomorrow morning.
Yeah, nice, congratulations, that's awesome. We actually have 2 members of our department, right off the top of my head, that started as Explorers with other agencies. So, and the one of them is actually the one that's going to head up, Chief Choate, Lori Choate. She's going to head up our cadet program. It is valid. It's amazing. Yeah, we got to bring these kids into what we do. Absolutely. There's somebody over here, and I'll get you next.
Of the 8,000 plus emergency responses, approximately how many would you say are heat related?
Heat, of our approximately 8,000 calls, how many are heat related?
I don't expect an actual number, but is it a small percentage? And do you expect it's going to get larger when it's getting hotter for you?
You wanna fix it?
Well, I think in general, the number is relatively low because we don't have a significant amount of heat injuries, although they do occur. And anytime that you have a heat type of an event, summertime and so forth, yes, we do definitely see an uptick in heat-related, heat exhaustion, heat stroke type of injuries. And all I can say is hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
Thank you.
Okay, so two things. I may have missed the answer, but why does the fire truck follow the ambulance?
So why does the fire truck follow the ambulance?
I'm not sure if you answered it.
So, it's because we are all cross-trained as firefighter paramedics. And I'm glad you asked that, because there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about that real quickly. But that's because we are all cross-trained as firefighters and paramedics. We all work together. So with that, keep in mind that what you are calling 911 for will dictate the level of response that you would get. And I'll give you for instance here. If you call 911 because you've been sick for a week and you need somebody to come take a look at you and possibly take you to the hospital, you will have a rescue truck respond to that emergency for you. If you're having chest pain, shortness of breath, you're in and out of consciousness, car accidents that are significant car accidents, anything of that relation that is an elevated level, you will have an elevated response, and you'll see a fire truck as well as a rescue truck. And they all work hand in hand, and they carry the same equipment. The only difference between the fire truck and the rescue truck patient care-wise is that the rescue truck can transport, the fire truck cannot. And I don't think anybody wants to ride on the hose bag.
Why is the fire truck? Is there a reason for that?
It's because
Is
they're
it always the way it is?
It's that service, that type of service is common throughout the state to where the fire truck will respond.
I think the question is, were you referring to the order of?
Oh, the
Yeah,
order.
That's where you might.
Coming behind,
Using what?
as an afterthought.
I mean, you made a point of saying.
Well, that's the way that question usually gets presented, but here's the flip side of that. Say we're going to a house fire, and you'll see the rescue truck following the fire truck. Again, it's because we're all cross-trained. And the rescue truck carries fire gear and their breathing apparatus and so forth, and they can immediately assist on the engine.
So my other question is about CERT, okay? I'm actually very interested in it. I have done volunteer work in the city. I volunteered at Tomorrow Framework for several years. But can you sort of cherry pick what you would be better at, as opposed to, like, my walking is not that steady. I don't want somebody to count on me to carry them out of a burning house. But like for other things, contacting people or even the small medical emergencies. I mean, is a person accepted into the program if they can't do everything but can do some of the things?
So if I understand your question correctly, is that if you can't do everything that a CERT team member can you do some of it? In some of the areas that you're more specialized.
Is that accepted, or would you be rejected on that basis because you need to be able to do
I know the answer, but I'm gonna let Ryan answer that himself.
We would not reject you, no, we would not. There's a place for you in our CERT team. Like you said, you could do the vulnerable population and assist with finding.
Which I'm a part of, by the way.
Okay, well, so.
You compose all, right?
I can go myself, right?
There you go.
No, I mean, it's very interesting. It's like an interesting question because, people have different skill sets.
Absolutely.
They're better at some than at others, so.
Yes, and we would appreciate your skills. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You didn't talk about the Lift Assist program.
Lift assist, where's that at?
Somebody calls?
Oh, Whitmore has no elevator.
Okay, what the question was, lift assist program, and further clarified up front here, Winmore, when they don't have an elevator, we work closely with Winmore management there. They let us know when an elevator is out of service. They post, let you know if you're gonna have issues and all, you need to schedule somebody. It's the same during a hurricane, when some of the elevators get shut down. in Winmore, we're talking specifically Winmore, you have to try to arrange your own transportation. If it is an emergency, citywide, fall, can't get up, we will come, call the non-emergency or 911 number, and we will come assist you up and do a medical evaluation on you, absolutely. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Fundraising program, do you have that?
What's that?
A fundraising program.
A fundraising program. Some of our members have gotten together and formed their own corporation, and it's called Benevolent, and they are out there, they do on their own, they do some fundraising, yes. Are you talking about for CERT or in general?
In general.
Yeah, in general.
Long Island, the volunteer fire department.
Yeah, this is very similar to that. What he's asked, a lot of volunteer firefighters, fire departments, I started as a volunteer firefighter. They do fundraisers, they have carnivals and that kind of stuff to raise money. We do, like I said, our employees got together and their goal is to do good in the community. They do some fundraising to support the local community. So yeah, there is the Benevolent out there, absolutely. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
And again, the explorers, you know, at the Butterfly Festival, at Arbor Day, they're wonderful. And they're so, I just can't
energetic.
I can't say enough about how adorable they are. But perhaps you could get women from the police department and fire department to do a little more outreach to girls. Because
Absolutely.
I don't think there's enough girls there, and
No,
you know, give them
I will agree with you on that.
like
Absolutely.
Chicago Fire did, you know, send girls on fire. Send girls on fire. Send some of the women out there, maybe to get some more females involved.
What she was bringing up is if the police and fire, all our female employees get together to support out there and to go out and recruit female. I know the police department, I don't know their exact numbers, they have a lot of female officers. We have a lot of female firefighters, paramedics. We just promoted one of our EMS chief is female, Chief Lori Cho. She's the one that's going to be doing the cadet program. So absolutely, we try to get them out front every time we can. Yep.
Good.
I think the girls would respond to the boys going out.
I'm not going to repeat that. Go ahead, and then I got you, Rod.
I'd just like to say thank you for the job you do.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Don't thank us. We're the support up here. When you see the firefighters out there, thank them. They're the ones that are out there working. We're just here to support them. So, Ross,
Okay, if there is a hurricane, how would we find out if we could get generators to keep our buildings going?
the question was, in case of a hurricane coming, how do we find out if we can get generators? We have Yvonne here. She does a lot of social media. Are you all part of, what's it correct? Cocogram. Get on Cocogram. She puts out a lot of information. She's constantly working 24/7 during a hurricane and putting all that information out. If we find out where generators are and that kind of stuff.
Yes, because, well, you did something with Solaris Nursing Home for us when we had the last one, and I was part of that and called you and you took care of it.
Okay, yeah. Any more questions?
No, I was just gonna say.
One more question.
Goes without saying.
Don't leave without stopping in the back to see, I'll get to you. Don't leave until you stop in the back. We have gift bags for you and stuff, and stop with Steve and look at the paperwork there. Go ahead.
So regarding youth and the CERT program, I'm sure that the schools promote it as service areas.
The cadet program, yes. I don't think the CERT program they do, but the cadet program counts toward service hours, yes. Does this CERT? It counts as community volunteer hours, so. All right, any more questions? Well, thank you all, appreciate it. Stop back in the back, talk to the commissioners, as well as stop